next presenter is Dr. Ramsés Galaz. He's the CEO of GSE Biomedical. He's professor of Instituto Tecnológico y de Estudios Superiores de Monterrey en Hermosillo, México. So, adelante, Ramsés, por favor.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for the invitation. One of the things that I like to discuss here is about our experience in developing a low-cost ventilator, which started about a little bit less than 4 months ago. And when I was hearing Jitendar's talk, I found a lot of similarities between what's happening worldwide in terms of global supply of components. I like a lot the idea of having a global harmonized validation. That's something unique. That's something that we shall explore as biomedical engineers. We don't know exactly if a medical device in a certain country will be valid in another country. So there's a lot of things that we can improve there. But here I am to talk about one of the initiatives, there's many, for developing a low-cost ventilator for the COVID-19 crisis. So we're one of the companies that has been developing these types of devices. And let me give you a little bit about the background, what motivated us to develop this. The numbers do not look any good for Mexico. I mean, as of 2 days ago, I updated this presentation, and we had about 35,000 deaths. That's number 4 in the world. 300,000 confirmed cases. That's number 7 in the world. And but most importantly, we do not have a very well-established medical device industry. We do have a very well-established industry for export devices. I mean, there's a lot of big companies that have facilities down here in Mexico that actually produce very high-quality devices. But under the regulations and under trade agreements, we are not allowed to consume those devices. I mean, it's all for export. So in Mexico, we have a very big problem about supply of high-quality medical devices, especially for class 2 and class 3 devices. We import about 90% of all devices, and that's a $4 billion market a year. So we do have a lot of issues with the healthcare system because we don't have a very well-established industry for local consumption. So we need to develop something very similar as a previous talk. I mean, I was very intrigued about that project. We should have that kind of established facility in every single country, for developing our own technology. That's something we desire a lot, and we do need it a lot. Another number is we have the second lowest number of ventilators per capita in Latin America. So that's that's a sad issue because right now the country doesn't seem to be stopping in terms of the rate of deaths and the rate of infection. So and we have the second lowest number of ventilators per capita. So therefore, there's a very big need for these ventilators. So we're actually struggling to get things moving fast so that we can finally have it approved and start selling the device and start donating the device as well to many hospitals down here in Mexico. The local medical device industry is not very well established except for major corporations producing for export. So that's something I already said. Next slide, please. Okay, so I'm just briefly, I'm gonna try to put you in perspective about the framework of how we developed this device. So we saw this as a very good opportunity to develop a class 2 medical device in Mexico to help people, but also most importantly to jumpstart this medical device industry that we do not have. I mean, we do have the regulation, we do have a set of rules. However, most of the time they are cumbersome, they are vague. They don't have. I mean, let me give you a comparison. The FDA has about 100 years of experience. Mexico only established the rules for medical device industry about 8 years ago. So we don't have a lot of experience in the country in terms of developing or having a lot of companies or having a very well-established industry to develop these types of devices. So we're still in the learning process to come up with a very clear set of rules for medical devices, especially in cases like the emergency of the COVID-19 crisis. For example, in Mexico, we do not have a legal instrument as in the US, which is called the Emergency Use Authorization. We just created one for the ventilator. I mean, but still in the development process. I mean, the set of rules was not very clear at the beginning. Now it has improved, and now the companies that are trying to develop the ventilators are, are getting on track on how to properly develop them. So, but it was a sad story that we didn't have that in place at the beginning of time, so that we can have these ventilators on time. So this project took a lot of things in perspective. I mean, we had to develop agile project management in 3 or 4 months period. I mean, we started the project about 4 months ago. There's a lot of concurrent engineering. The ventilator that I'm presenting here is the work of not just my company, but many companies and many institutions and many hospitals involved into the development of this. So the concurrent engineering process is challenging. Financially, well, we did have the luck of having a lot of people that supported us in terms of putting on money for developing this project. Especially big companies that want to help other people. So we were okay with the financial side. Right now, we are on the very final stages of doing the steps to prove the safety and efficacy of the device. So that's part of the Mexican regulatory process. We're still in the very final stages. We should get the news very soon. I mean, as of this week. But yes, regulatory issues were, as I said before, a little bit cumbersome at the beginning, but now things have progressed and now things are getting on track. But one of the most important aspects that I want to discuss about is the political and cultural issues that we have to face in Mexico as a country, because it seems that that is a major problem in the country, and I can pretty much tell that it's a major problem in many countries, because instead of working together, there's many political interests involved in the development of these devices. So that was one of the major setbacks in the development of this project. I mean, we could have had the project developed much sooner if it wasn't for the cultural issues or the political interests that put us in a setback for the development of the project. I mean, we are now solving those issues, but yes, it was something that I was not expecting that. I mean, as a biomedical engineer, I'm used to, as Jitendar was saying, like we're used to, doing seamless transactions. But then we have to face the political aspect of things. So that was a major learning in the development of this project. So next slide, please. So to give you a little bit of perspective about the timeline of the development of this project, we started about March 15 when the pandemic hit Mexico. The early prototypes were developed by early April. Then we finished a little bit more by late April. We started to develop the first animal testing by the first week of May. We established a production line by early May as well. So we developed a facility that is able to produce about 500 ventilators a week. So it's now very well established. It has now been approved by the Mexico's regulatory agency. I mean, there's 3 steps in the approval process. You have to approve the production line, you have to approve the design, and you have to demonstrate the safety and efficacy of the device. So out of the 3, we have passed 2 of those tests. So we kept doing in vivo and in vitro testing from late May to early June. We submitted the final documents about a month ago, and we received a response by our research granting agency, CONACYT, by the beginning of July. So we have now passed 2 out of 3 tests. We are now on the very final stage of passing the final test, which requires the last set of animal tests, and we shall be receiving soon the temporary regulatory permit. This is by no means a medical device that is authorized for sale. This is just for the pandemic, and then once the pandemic crisis is over, we have to repeat the process of actually developing the regulatory process as a formal medical device, which will take some time. I mean, I'm not saying that this is a fully finished medical device. This is just for the crisis. However, we are learning as we speak. I mean, things are still happening as we speak. So we shall be getting this temporary regulatory permit soon, and we shall be releasing the first ventilators very soon, probably this week or next week, as the news I'm hearing. So this is about a little bit about the timeline. So next slide, please. So these are some of the images that we developed when when we were testing the device with the animal with pigs. The nice features about this design is that this is a fully digital ventilator. I mean, it's a piston-based design. However, because the design is 100% digital, everything is based on software. So if we want to add more ventilation modes, we just need to code in the new modes of ventilation. We don't rely on mechanical components. The only mechanical component here is the piston and the motor that drives the piston, but that's it. I mean, the rest is pretty much standard stuff. I mean, the sensors and the connectors and the fittings, it's pretty much standard. However, if we want to change something about the device, we just need to update the software. But I agree with Jitendar. I mean, like, this is the Y2K moment of medical device industry in Mexico as well. This is a very good opportunity to detonate this industry. I mean, we lack the development of these types of devices, especially class 2 and class 3 devices in Mexico. Next slide, please. So these are other pictures about the some of the animal testing that we have been doing with the device and some in vitro testing that we're doing at some hospitals in Mexico City. Next slide. These are just pictures about the full-scale production. As I said, we have the capability to develop about 500 ventilators a week. We're still not sure about how many ventilators we're going to be needing as a country. However, we must be prepared for developing as many as we can. Next slide. And so what were the major hurdles? First of all, in Mexico, I like to mention something that we call regulatory uncertainty. The problem is that while we do have a very clear set of rules, sometimes these rules are not followed very strictly. I mean, I have had medical devices in the past, and nobody can tell you exactly, how soon or how late you're gonna get your approval. So there's a lot of things that, I mean, we still need to learn as a country, and we need to improve on how to reach a medical device. This is a very important aspect for investors. I mean, one of the reasons in Mexico we don't have a very well-established industry is because there's a lot of regulatory uncertainty here. I mean, the investors do not like to invest in a medical device industry because nobody knows exactly what set of rules are going to apply to your medical device, because they might be different to other medical devices that are very similar. So it's something that we need to solve. As I said before, there's a lot of political interest. That's something that is hurting the industry a lot. We don't have a very well-established medical device industry. And also, as Jitendar was saying, we also do not have many approved testing labs as third-party approved labs. So therefore, the regulatory requirement compliance is very challenging for somebody who wants to develop a medical device within the country. And also, I agree with Jitendar in terms of one of the major risks in developing these devices is the component supply. I mean, we must not rely on outside components. We must create our own. However, as Jitendar was saying, there's only a very few set of places that they are developing the sensors, they are developing these types of components, and they must be certified in order to have a certified medical device. Next slide, please. And this is the last one. So what are the challenges for establishing a medical device industry in Mexico? We must grow our own medical device industry and not rely on imports. So as I said, we rely 90% on these things. So we import 90%, and that's something that we must change. We need a clear set of regulatory rules, and we must also be able to establish a legal instrument such as the emergency use authorization model, such as the one that they have in the United States. We do not have one. We created one for the ventilator, but we need to have something similar for future medical devices should there be new crises. We need more third-party approved labs so that we can have a much better medical device industry. And the regulatory approval process must modernize itself. Right now, nowadays, the regulatory process still relies on paper-based submissions. I mean, and when I say paper-based, I'm not talking about submitting a set of documents via email. We still have to mail by physical mail, the documents. They needs to be stamped. So we must, and that takes time. Time. That's something that is very going against, for the modern trend of developing medical devices. So we must modernize these types of things. But as my final thought, despite of all the hurdles, the key learning was that a small group of people achieved the almost impossible task of making a quality ventilator. I mean, I can say that the ventilator that we developed is a very high quality ventilator. We have done several tests in the past. We're very happy about the development of the project. However, we must face these types of hurdles in an environment that is not suitable for developing medical devices. So that's the key learning here. I mean, it's very challenging. And I would appreciate a lot if you have any questions, and thank you very much for everything.
Okay, thank you very much, Ramsés. One of the things that came to mind as you were talking is that this double-edged sword of globalization. Basically, globalization has both enabled the rapid spread of the pandemic, and it's also revealed the incredible vulnerabilities that exist by virtue of having components being manufactured and subcomponents all over the world, depending upon transportation and supply chain agreements and things like that. So one possible alternative is that we might move in the direction of regionalization, using perhaps WHO regions to create centers of expertise that are relevant to the healthcare needs of those regions. So now